Just been informed that some attendees are not have not changed their name to to their personal identity. Please kindly do that so that we can actually identify you. Mr. Ismail, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Odim, for the introduction on Taj Bank. And going by the nature of the Sukuk, and as I've announced that is about adhering the Mudarabah Sukuk issued by Taj Bank, being the first Mudarabah Sukuk or an additional Tier 1 Sukuk to be issued within the Nigerian financial market. And basically, for every issuances, there are always a background to the underlying structure. And for this particular kind of issuances, where we have the Basel 2, Basel 3, and the IFSB. So as we all know, most banks in the world are well guided by this particular framework. For the Basel and for Islamic banks, you have the Islamic Financial Services Board that actually released the IFSB 15 in the year 2013. And it was based on this IFSB 15 that most IF institutions, that is the Islamic financial institutions, especially the banks, have introduced a framework for capital adequacy and liquidity management. So, and the essence of the IFSB 15, it actually aims to introduce a framework for capital ratio and liquidity requirement that ensures effective risk management in the Islamic banking industry. And in many jurisdictions, so many banks in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Malaysia, Kuwait, Turkey, and even Qatar have issued additional Tier 1 Mudarabah Sukuk following the framework as introduced by the IFSB. So in the next slide, we'll actually see some of the banks that use this particular system in ensuring that they've been able to Mudarabah Sukuk, most especially additional Tier 1 Sukuk, have been issued in different jurisdictions where you have presence of Islamic finance, and a key banks like the Ali Islamic Bank in Kuwait, the Alimna Bank in Saudi Arabia, the Bank Al Jazeera in Saudi Arabia, the Dubai Islamic Bank in the United Arab Emirates. You have the Dukhan Bank also in Qatar. You have the Kuwait Finance House in Kuwait, the Saudi National Bank, the Warba Bank, Sharjah Islamic Bank, and Kuwait Stock Participation Bank. So all these banks, within a 10-year period between now, some of these issuances were in 2021, some are in 2020, which is just a very close period within this range. They've all issued Sukuk, mostly using the additional Tier 1 Sukuk Mudarabah structure in issuing Sukuk, in which the same is what Taj Bank is doing today. And for the Taj Bank Sukuk, it is unique in the sense that this is the first of its kind in Nigeria, and not just Nigeria, in West Africa and even in the sub-Saharan financial jurisdiction. And we have another bank probably that will be coming in using the same process. So in terms of the professional parties for this particular Sukuk, the lead issuing house is Greenwich Merchant Bank. Greenwich, as we know, they've also participated in other issuances, both the FGN and that of the family homes. We also have the joint issuing houses, Tito, Eva Capital, FEMAL. We have 117 Capital Limited and Bura Capital Limited are the joint share advisors to this particular Sukuk, and the delegate trustees that will be holding in Sukuk on behalf of the investors is the FBN Quest trustees. For receiving bank, we have Jais Bank PLC and Lotus Bank Limited, who are both a non-interest bank also. Then for the solicitor, we have the Metropolitan Law Firm, and the receiving agent, we have Mabu Capital Limited. And as it has been said, the Sukuk, the originator is Taj Bank, and for the SPV, which actually raising this particular fund, is the Taj Sukuk Issuance Program. And the underlying contract is a Mudarabah. And for Mudarabah, it is a partnership in business in which one party provides the capital and the other party manages the business. So in this case, the bank is the Mudari who actually manages the Mudarabah venture, the Mudarabah capital as the case may be, while the Sukuk SPV is the Rabu Mal and the capital provider on behalf of the Sukuk holders. And the purpose is just simply an additional Tier 1 capital with loss absorption features. And for the issue size is a 10 billion Sukuk structure. And we have a profit sharing ratio of about 75-25, which I will explain further, and a projected or an estimated return on investment per annum of about 15%, which is payable on a biannual basis. And the tenure is perpetual, but callable after a minimum of 5 years. The Sukuk will be listed on the NSE or the FMDQ for secondary market trading. Then the redemption is on callable date at fair value of the trust asset. Then on the adjustment of some terms, it will be after a minimum of 2 years and every 2 years thereafter. The use of the proceed, which is very key here, is that this issue proceed shall be used by the issuer as capital contribution to the Mudarabah venture. And the issue proceed will be commingled with the other capital of the bank in ensuring that they actually have enough capital to finance businesses in different sectors of the Nigerian economy. And these Sukuk have been approved by the phrase, that is the Financial Regulation Advisory Council of Experts of the Central Bank of Nigeria, who has actually vetted the document to ensure that everything about the Sukuk is Sharia compliant. We also have the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, being the regulator of the capital market, have also approved the same structure and document to be okay for us to actually go to the market to raise the fund. And in summary, this is the Sukuk structure where we have the bank has the Mudarib, who is to manage the Sukuk capital. We have the issuer or the Sukuk SPV, who will be the Robuma, the provider of the capital. We also have the certificate holders who are also the key investors in this particular structure. And it is expected that there will be a declaration of trust and also being the underlying agreement between the provider of the capital and the one who actually manages the capital is the Mudarabah agreement, which stipulates who the action expected of each parties in this particular Sukuk. And upon that, the Sukuk proceed will be raised and the Mudarabah capital will be provided to the Mudarib for him to actually utilize as stipulated in the Mudarabah agreement in order to finance different investing transactions in identified sectors of the Nigerian economy. And on a periodic basis, the profit realized from this transaction will be shared with investors and with the SPV, and the SPV will also indirectly share it with the Sukuk holders. But in order to have a very detailed explanation of how the Sukuk will work from the beginning of collecting the money from the investors and to how the bank will utilize this proceed in financing business activities in different sectors of the economy, which I would like to take us through now. So we've identified that the bank here is the Mudarib, and the essence of the Mudarib is to manage this Mudarabah capital raised from the Sukuk market. And here we have the Sukuk SPV, which also the Robumal, and we have the identified investors in this particular transaction. And it is expected that the Sukuk proceed will be passed from the investors to the Sukuk SPV. And the Sukuk SPV will also contribute this money as the Mudarabah capital to Taj Bank. And for what will Taj Bank do with this money? Taj Bank is going to commingle this particular Mudarabah capital, which is also the Sukuk proceed in their other capital. Other capital of the bank in this sense are the equity fund, which is the shareholders fund of the bank. You also have other depositors fund of the bank, in which the bank will use in financing business activities in different sectors. So we have the Mudarabah deposit fund that the bank have actually from Then it is expected that the bank will identify different sectors of the economy. And for these different sectors of the economy, this is where the Sukuk proceed will actually be invested in. And probably you have a real estate, you have an agricultural sector, you have the oil and gas, you have the transportation, you have the trade and commerce and etc. So these are basically different sectors of the economy that that the bank normally invests their capital in. And in ensuring that the bank have a very good understanding and to ensure that money of the investors are well protected, they channel this particular fund in numerous investing transactions. So I believe Mr. Odim, when I'm done with this structure, you can actually come and give more explanation to some of these investing transactions so that people understand basically that, yes, the bank may be receiving money on a Mudarabah basis from these Sukuk investors, but in the investment that the bank actually does, they will not be doing a two-tier Mudarabah whereby you collect Mudarabah from party A, then you go and invest also in Mudarabah in party B, which exposed or have a very high risk of credit risk in this particular regard. And it is expected that the underlying contract between the Sukuk SPV and the bank, which is the Mudarabah, is a Mudarabah contract. And this investment in various sectors of the economy where the Sukuk proceeds will actually be invested in. But the major thing here is that in the investing transaction, the bank, in order to avoid the credit risk or liquidity risk or risk associated with failed investment, will not be using a Mudarabah contract, so that we'll not be having a two-tier Mudarabah here. So in ensuring that investors' funds are well protected, the use of Murabba, Ijara, and Wakala contract will be well employed in order to safeguard the Mudarabah proceed from these Sukuk investors. And it is expected that on a monthly basis, when profit is being generated from these various investment activities of the bank, it will be passed or paid into the proceed account of the SPV by the Mudarib, which is Third Bank. And this also will continue on a periodic basis, and it will be paid to the Sukuk investors. So Mr. Odim, I think I would like if he can come in and explain mostly on the numerous investing transactions that the bank normally does.
Thank you very much, Ismail. You've more or less touched all the key areas that the bank is involved in terms of investment and our day-to-day activity. So like Ismail already explained, because we will not want undue risk exposure, we don't involve in other Mudarabah with counterparties, especially those that also rely on other sources on the value chain sources. Of course, this is within Sharia compliant transactions. To avoid that undue exposure, we also deploy the platform, this category of customers on the Murabba, Ijara, and the Wakala contract. Basically, that's what we are involved in them. And for example, the Wakala contract, there are a number of counterparties too who have the know-how and they have their contract, of course, within the Sharia compliance standard. We support them with this. We have a standard Ijara, Wakala contract with them, and of course, periodically too. At the end of the expected tenure, this profit is shared as agreed, as per the contract. Then for Ijara, this cut across different sectors too, especially real estate. What we do really is get involved in the real estate directly, and the customer, as expected, pay rentals, and this takes care of that. And it applies to for the Murabaha. So we do not get involved in the Mudarabah contract. We break it down so that we can also cater to this category of customers. Like Ismail already explained, a number of sectors are on our exclusion list, and we will not go into them just to make just to make the bank's activity continue to be Sharia compliant. I think I'll just stop there and take questions. Thank you.
Okay, I think in addition, going by the financing activities, basically two financing contract of Mudarabah and the Ijara is very key. And as we all know of recent, there have been changes in some of the macroeconomics indicators, most especially the MPR issued last week by the Central Bank of Nigeria. And this particular sukuk, being a Mudarabah Sukuk, have the flexibility of probably the bank paying higher than the anticipated or the expected profit of 15%. And this brings into play the use of an Ijara contract in financing. So when you use an Ijara contract in financing, probably on an annual basis, there are always room for you to actually change some of the rental you'll be getting from these transactions to reflect the current economic situation in the country. And if the bank make a higher profit margin in this regard, the Sukuk investors will also share in corresponding to this. And for you may wonder whereby, because the economy is a cycle, there may be period whereby you make a less return on investment. There will surely be a part which we call the profit equalization reserve, where a percentage of the excess profit will be kept in order for you to smoothen your profit payment to investors in a period whereby you have a lesser return on investment, and so that you use it in augmenting this particular payment obligation. And it is expected that upon liquidity of this particular sukuk, the fair value will be the underlying liquidation capital for the sukuk investors, meaning you may actually invest in this sukuk at the rate of 1,000 naira for each unit, but at the point of exit, it may actually be a 1,300 naira, 1,400 naira, depending on the value of the asset on the call date. And like it has been explained, the call date for this particular sukuk is every 5 years. So 5 years, initial 5 years and 2 years thereafter, or any other day as agreed by the regulator, which is the Central Bank of Nigeria. And for this sukuk, yes, it may be perpetual, but for this initial 5 years, the sukuk can actually be called by the bank, and the sukuk investors will actually be paid their capital. And for people who may feel, okay, we need to trade on this sukuk, you can actually do it immediately after the closure of the primary offer, and the proceeds has been passed to the bank for their financing activities, meaning the bank have started utilizing this capital for their day-to-day financing activities, meaning the sukuk investors in this regard can actually trade or sell or buy some of these units through the identified platform that this particular sukuk will be listed on. I think basically this is what I would say. I know some questions will come so that we can give further explanation to the structure and the nature of the sukuk. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Ismail and Mr. Michael, for this wonderful presentation. It's actually very short, and I think short and precise, and that is really what we want. We really don't want to dilly-dally on things that are not important. Let's go straight to the important things. All right, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Ismail, once again. I think people have started asking questions, but we just need to get some questions out of the way first, because, you know, our attendees definitely, some of them understand, or let's say understood the, Arabic word being used, all this Ijara, Wakala, Mudarabah, Murabaha being used, but some don't really understand. So definitely when you are making your presentation next time, or when you're answering some questions, please kindly explain, right? Thank you for that. Number two is that you are still going to answer the 5 W's first before we take any questions from the audience. Number one, I'll ask Mr. Michael, why this Sukuk? Why do Taj need this Sukuk? Why do they issue this Sukuk? Because it's very, very important for people to know why. Mr. Michael, if you can unmute yourself and answer the question.
Okay, thank you very much, for that question. There are a number of reasons. The first reason is to increase the capital of the bank. And why are we doing so? Such that we'll be able to take on, first of all, the bank will be stronger, we'll be able to do more transactions, and we'll also be able to take larger ticket transactions. For example, the capital base of the bank will not enable the bank to do transactions that are more than, for example, say 2 billion for one customer. So if a customer comes, a large ticket customer, or maybe a consortium of customers, and their transaction is like 4 or 5 billion, the bank will not be able to take it. So this will give us the capacity to do so. And more so, the bank was recently granted national license, and you cannot have a single obligor limit of just 2 billion, and you say you're a national bank, looking at the entire business climate. So it is really critical to do that. And importantly too, like my brother Ismail did mention, this is raising funds. This is a means of raising funds. We're a forerunner, if you will, of this model of trying to raise capital. So is a pathway that we are breaking. It's just an inroad into the non-interest space in Nigeria. This is the first time that such sukuk is being issued. FGN has issued a number of Ijara sukuk in the past. So, and besides, we're trying to be global, counted among the non-interest space in global marketplace, and that's why, as displayed, you will see notable institutions across the world are issuing it. So it becomes imperative that we issue as well, just to broaden the non-interest space, and of course enhance the capability of the bank. And of course, eventually that comes to the benefit of customers. Thank you. So that's why Taj Bank is issuing it. We're giving we're giving the general public, the investing public, an opportunity to be part of something good, part of the bank, if you will. Thank you.
Or I think I would like to take the last point. I mean, being part of something special. I mean, the success of Taj Bank. Okay, this is how we are going to take the questions. We'll take one from the chat box, then we'll take another from the attendee raising up their hand. I will just call your name, you unmute yourself, go straight to the point, and we'll answer the question. So first and foremost, I'll call on Amir. Amir, kindly unmute yourself, go straight to the point, and we'll answer the question. Go ahead, please.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
So my question is regarding the rental rates.
Okay, rental rate.
Yes. So with the MPR recently raised the rates by 150 basis points to 15.5%. So is Taj looking to review the current 15% rental rates they fixed on the Sukuk?
Okay, is that the question?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me allow Mr. Odim to actually answer that question. Mr. Odim, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much, my brother, for that question. As you well know, this Sukuk issuance is a process, that developed up to this level. We've been on this conversation for over a year, and as you know, before May, the MPR rate was 11.5, and subsequently 14, and now this is where we are. The approval that was sorted from SEC even came before the latest development on the part of the MPC. We're watching the market closely. Because we have that approval, and this sukuk will go on this 15%. It will go on it, but mind you, we have there's an entire program of 100 billion, and we'll take note of that, even if that was anticipated before this time, such that even when MPR rate was 11.5 was when we plugged it on this 15, just to make it enticing enough for the will-be investors. And this is where we are. We're watching very closely. We're targeting that perhaps in the next program, some of these things will change, but we will run on this because that is what SEC has approved for us. And the instance is the sukuk was already in issuance before the pronouncement was made. Not to forget too that it is a market. It may also swing the other way, and we do not expect to drop the rate from 15 to sub 15 at any time in the lifespan of this issuance. So we'll stand with the 15 on this particular issuance. Thank you.
All right, I think that's been answered. I will go to the chat box just to take one from the chat box also. We have this question coming from Olalekan saying, who is the Sukuk SPV? Who are the officials? Mr. Ismail, can you answer this question?
Okay, for the Sukuk SPV, we have majority the delegate trustees, which is FBN Quest trustees here. They are a shareholder to this particular Sukuk SPV. The bank is also a shareholder, and you also have other professional parties, and the secretary being the Metropolitan Law Firm. But in terms of the directors of the SPV, the same trustees are also directors in this SPV. We also have one of the representative of the Sharia advisor in person of Malam Atairu Machido, and the bank also have been. So we have about 3 directors, and out of these 3 directors, 2 are from the professional parties and 1 is from the bank. So you have the majority coming from the professional parties in this regard.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. I'll go straight to the hands. We have Mr. Lukman Afolabi. Mr. Lukman, please kindly unmute yourself and ask your question quickly. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I thank Taj Bank and the organizers of this Sukuk program. My question goes thus. We can see the different allocations of sector where the bank is for the utilization of this fund. And be that as it may, I can see that in their diagram, we see that sectors like real estate, agri, transport, trade, oil and gas, and others. Now, in the diagram presented to us, we will see that real estate comes first. Now, in actual fact, in Nigeria, for instance, maybe some other parts of the world, the time it takes to recoup investment in real estate is more than 5 years, considering the minimum wage in Nigeria, so to say, even if you are a middle management or senior management staff, as the case may be. Now, I want to ask the organizers and the bank that, what is the allocation from this first phase in this series 1? What is the allocation to real estate, considering the fact that the first call comes in the first 5 years of trading? So that's what I want to know. Okay, so what's the allocation? Because, okay, like some pension fund administrator, they like to test the water. This is maybe first of the series. Okay, let's get the money back. Then let's reinvest. There are other series coming up. So what's the allocation the bank will be putting into real estate, considering the call-up period. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I think,
Thank you so
Mr.
much.
Mudassir, let me give a disclaimer here. The structure was done by 117, not in ranking in terms of the sectors in which the bank actually invests in. It's just as a form for us to understand how the finance will actually go from the investors down to the last person. And also, when you look at investment in real estate, in Islamic finance, there are different sectors that you can actually use. So when we say investment in real estate, it may not necessarily be purchase of houses or sale of houses. You have purchase of construction materials, in which payment normally comes on a monthly basis. So mostly Mudarabah, you do short-term financing. It can be for 1 year, it can be for 6 months, for purchase of necessary raw materials for this particular real estate client. And they also pay you back both the principal amount and the necessary markup on a monthly basis. So they are short-term investment products. So, but I will allow Mr. Odin to explain further on some of these sectors.
Okay, Mr. Odin, please, you have the mic.
Okay, thank you very much. There are guidelines. Of course, you know that all banks are under strict regulation by the CBN. So there are guidelines as to sectoral allocation of their funds and investments. So Taj Bank has them. I can just give you a rough, even if every bank has their strategy on how they adopt the sectoral allocation, but in the range of between 10 and 15% is what Taj Bank real estate business covers. Other sectors as listed, of course, except sectors that are not Sharia compliant. Other sectors are also strategically positioned, but then there are guidelines given by the CBN to follow. Also, in your question, you express worries that this is a 5-year, even if it's perpetual, it's callable after 5 years. Also, do not forget that at the introduction, at the point where Ismail did talk about the structure of the Sukuk, they talked about commingling. So the funds of the Sukuk will be commingled with the ordinary funds of the bank. So once they are commingled, the structure will be such that even if some of these transactions, maybe like real estate, are beyond 5 years, it will not affect the overall capital flow and allocation. And if at any instance there's a call-up, of a particular section or a particular amount, subscription level, it will still not affect the project or product or the funds flow that the bank is involved in. The key word there is the funds are tier 1 capital and they are commingled with the cash flow of the bank. That's the key word. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that explanation. And I need to add this also. So far, it's not. We don't have anything in this transaction that said restricted. This is not a restricted Mudarabah contract. It is not. So definitely, the bank will definitely choose to invest in all the allowed investment they have in the bank. Okay. Now, let me go straight.
That's correct. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me go straight to Dr. Yauza Salisu. Please kindly unmute yourself and ask your question, sir. Go ahead, sir. Dr. Yauza, please kindly unmute yourself and go ahead. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, doctor.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My question is in respect to the description of the Sukuk We all know that when issuing Mudarabah Sukuk, what I saw from the prospectus of the bank is that 15% in the first year will be given as the profits that will be shared to investors. So, and in Mudarabah, we all know the principle is that there shouldn't be any fixed profits in Murabaha contract. So I need more light on that. And secondly, the Mudarabah Sukuk with loss absorbing features. I need more explanation on this phrase, loss absorbing feature. What does it mean? These are two questions that I want the speakers to address. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I think Mr. Ismail, this question is for you.
Okay, I think the profit payment is in not immediately, to be after the 6 month and 12 month respectively. So is a Mudarabah Sukuk, and if you check the qualifying adjective of this profit, we actually stated it as projected and estimated, going by the nature of the fact that it's a Mudarabah structure. And for the profit sharing ratio, you also see that we mentioned it as 75-25% of the profit generated. And the essence of this is because the bank is also commingling their own fund, and the bank actually contributed more than the Sukuk investors in this regard. So when you plus the share capital fund of the bank and other deposit capital of the bank, which have taken more than 60% of the available capital to be invested in different sectors, the bank have actually contributed more than the Sukuk SPV. And this is the reason behind the 75-25 profit sharing ratio. The profit sharing ratio is different from the expected income. So for meaning, if for instance we get a 10 naira, the bank take 7 naira 50 kobo, while the Sukuk SPV take 2 naira 50 kobo. That is the profit sharing ratio. But it is expected that this will amount to about 15% of the expected investment of the bank, based on the internal calculation and historical of some of the investment the bank has actually been doing. And for us to also understand this, for banks, it is necessary that the amount to be paid to Sukuk investors is within what the bank actually generates as profit. And Islamic finance actually encourage that you can't pay what you are not earning. So if for the bank, for instance, the bank only generate 20% on an average for investment, and the bank is promising you 25%, meaning the bank is not actually saying the truth. But yet they are saying, yes, as a Mudarib and Robumal, we will do the profit sharing, but it will also be within the ability for us to pay. And the situation whereby if the bank earn higher than that, like I've mentioned, there are two possible ways. They can pay higher than this, and they will also be putting some 10% of the excess profit in an account in this regard, in order to smooth in when in period where number one, profit was not up to what has been projected will be received on a monthly basis in that regard. Then for loss absorption feature of this Sukuk, for every additional tier 1 Sukuk, you have to follow the law as stipulated in the IFSB 15, and as also based on the guideline, the non-interest financial regulatory guideline released by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Meaning for a bank, you must follow the laid down procedure. Number one, before the bank actually come to raise the Sukuk, they actually receive the permission and the approval of the Central Bank of Nigeria. For every action, going by the fact that the bank is being regulated by the Central Bank of Nigeria, every action related to this Sukuk fund and other fund of the bank are always based on the regulatory aspect of the Central Bank. And what this means is that the Mudarabah capital here to the bank is not a debt. It is in form of an equity. So a Mudarabah Sukuk additional tier 1 is more of like an hybrid structure that have both the characteristics of a debt and that of equity in one. So to the Sukuk holders, because we are used to Sukuk, we may classify it as debt. But because of the underlying contract, which is Mudarabah, or if at all is also another contract which is also Musharaka, which we all know are equity in nature or partnership in nature, it will be treated in the book of the bank not as a debt in this regard. It will be treated as an equity, but in terms of equity, not the same level as the shareholders fund of the bank. And this is the reason why, in terms of ranking, the Sukuk holders are ranked higher than the shareholders of the bank or in terms of liquidation or insolvency of this particular entity. So what this is saying is that the Sukuk because it's a Mudarabah structure, and because in Mudarabah, the provider of the capital, it is expected can lose its capital when there are losses. And in this particular regard, it should also be stated. But one of the risk mitigant in this particular regard is what I've been able to explain, and what Mr. Odim has also been able to explain, is that yes, you collect money from the Sukuk investors on a Mudarabah basis, but going by the nature of the investment by the bank, in order to mitigate any risk in terms of liquidity or credit risk of their investment, you also need to ensure that the underlying contract in which you use in financing your day-to-day investment activities are contracts that give you a more control of what happened in this investment. So for instance, you want to do an Ijara contract financing with ABZ company. Is for you to either use a Murabah or an Ijara contract. In such a way, if you use a Murabah, meaning you actually do a sales contract in this regard, in which the total ownership of that asset belongs to the client. But in return, you probably demand for a collateral that have a very good value more than the asset you finance. And the essence is that you are putting into consideration the investment or the investors that have contributed in this particular regard. And this is the reason why sometimes many people complain that I'm expecting the bank to just give me money. And so what if the bank gives you money and your business experience losses, and the Sukuk investors are already waiting for their own money? What would the bank say? So when we look at it, investment shouldn't be based on sentiment. The bank will ensure that, number one, the underlying investment is from a credible client that have a good credit status. That is number one. The underlying contract will also be contract that will actually protect the interest of the bank and the investors that have also invested in this structure. Going by the fact that, yes, the money collected is based on Mudarabah basis, but the investments to be done in this particular regard will not be based on Mudarabah in order to avoid losses. So because of the nature of the Sukuk, it will be, and for it to be qualified as an additional tier 1 capital, it must be able to absorb losses. But in mitigating against this is where the bank actually invests actually matters. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. I think to actually make it more easier, anybody that wants to invest in this will try to know the nitty-gritty of things, because these are investor information. This is what you should give to them before they take, their own decision. Thank you so much for answering that question. I can see a hand up, but kindly rename yourself so that it's going to reflect your identity. It's still showing Ismail Rufai, so I won't be able to call you until you rename, so that I can be able to bring you on stage. All right, I'll go to the next person, which is Mr. Yao. If you are there, please kindly unmute yourself and ask your question quickly. Your audio is not unmuted. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning. Actually, I just joined the program now.
Okay.
I'm also a potential investor.
Great.
On this Sukuk.
You're welcome.
But I've been going through all the documents, trying to educate myself so that I can be able to understand how the Sukuk works.
Great.
But my concern is as a small investor that may not be willing to put his money up to 5 years before redemption. So what are the possibilities for me to recoup or recover my investment before the end of the tenure of the Sukuk, in case I have some other challenges fund challenges?
Okay, thank you. So I think that question is so valid, and I love the question, because definitely we'll be getting more of this kind of investors. So Mr. Odim, I want you to answer this, or Mr. Ismail, which one of you will take this?
Okay, in terms of, currently we are doing the primary offer. So there will be a secondary market for the Sukuk whereby registered investors can actually trade or sell or buy additional units from the secondary market. So this Sukuk will be listed on the NGS or the FMDQ, as the case may be, for secondary market trading. So just like the federal government of Sukuk or any other Sukuk, you can actually trade it at that point in time. You don't need to actually wait till the 5 years or the call date naturally for you to liquidate this particular Sukuk. So it's tradable, and it gives you room for liquidity from any investor that actually invests in this regard. So it's just for you to contact your stockbroker, and it will be more easier that way after it has been listed on the NGS. And because it's also a Mudarabah Sukuk, so immediately the bank start investing this money, automatically it means you can trade on it. And a good contract of that is the Mudarabah contract, in which this Sukuk is being structured.
All right, I think.
So, and the application have already been made to the necessary listening platform. It's just for us to conclude on the offer and
okay, if I may, I think that answers the question. So before the 5 years, you can actually just go ahead. It's going to be listed on the exchange. You'll be able to trade it on the exchange, maybe sell, and you recoup the money. And don't forget, immediately they start the investment, you start getting your profit. And one thing I want to actually ask is that, what at all, if anything happens, let's say you need profits was not made when the bank actually enters into these businesses, what happens? I'm not saying that if there's loss, no. I'm talking about if maybe the business just break even and there's no profit. What happens in the part of the bank? So is it that the profit that will be shared, that there will be zero, or you have other things to add? Mr. Odin, please kindly answer this question.
Okay, thank you very much for this very, very important question, as important as the first one. I will take it. We'll take it in two parts. Perhaps Ismail will also need to throw in one or two comments on it. First of all, why are you investing in this Sukuk? You're investing because of the performance of the bank. Nature of the Sukuk, yes, is one, but if you look at the performances of the bank, and that is what we are offering to start with. I mean, this is a bank that broke even within the first year. And also looking at all the growth trajectory elements, this is a bank that has never made loss for month on month in our less than 3 years history. And of course, we are within the confines, very strictly so, of the non-interest banking. I mean, that said, Ismail did mention about a profit equalization account, and that from time to time, as the bank makes profit, even as we appropriate the accrued profits, rentals, funds also go into this account. And if there's a shortfall or whatsoever, I mean, that's within the system, this account will take care of that, and it will not reflect to the customer. It will not reflect to the investor at all. So that is how this has been structured. And of course, it is in line with the guidelines from SEC. Ismail, you want to throw in one or two things on that? Thank you.
Yes, I think it's just for us to also understand the fact that the bank actually have investment in different sectors of the economy. And there is no how all these sectors being all the investment that the bank is doing will all return zero or negative profits in this regard. So what this means that because you've diversified your investment horizon, meaning if company A is not providing profit or the period is in February, company B will be doing that in this regard. So number one, you have diversification of investment, meaning you have different investment with different profit period and different profit to the bank. And there is no how all this investment will be generating zero return at the same time. Going by the fact that the bank, as explained by Mr. Odim, currently have non-performing investment, going by the nature of investment they normally do. I think basically when you do investment, number one, you screen the clients that you actually invest in and ensure that they are companies that have good credit record. And you also look at the underlying contract that you also do, and also the nature of the business itself you engage in. It gives you a control of what happened in that particular business. Yes, profit and loss are normal in business, but nevertheless, you should be able to mitigate some to a barest minimum. And this is the reason why some of the investment the bank does, we call them asset-backed transaction. Meaning, apart from what you are financing, you also have a corresponding asset that gives confidence to the bank in this regard in case of default in payment by these clients. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. I think you've also answered that question. And though I will go straight, I think, what's the time now? We have little time to actually round up this webinar, and definitely we'll be doing that soon. But before then, I think I will want to also invite Dr. Adam. Dr. Adam, please kindly unmute yourself and please kindly change the name on your on your identity. It's because of your picture I was able to identify you. Please do that and go ahead with your question, sir.
Sorry, Malam Mudassir, I think it is from your own side. It is a technical issue. More than 70% of the participants are automatically turned to Ismail Rufai. I was bearing my name, but as you called me, I turned to Ismail Rufai, and I don't know how it happened. So okay, I think it is from the IFING Media. Maybe you need to check it subsequently.
We are very sorry for that, but please.
So you may check. Yeah, automatically when you want to talk, you become Ahmed Rufai. And okay, that's why more than 70% of the participants are Ahmed Rufai. And I congratulate him for being the Lion participant.
All right,
thank you very much. Mine is has to do with the sequence of the issuances of this Mudarabah, the pioneer Mudarabah Sukuk in the West Africa region entirely, which is being championed by Touch Bank, Borak, and 117 and other issuing partners. I don't know the sequence. Is it going to be based on the progress recorded on the earlier issuances, or there is a schedule for these issuances up to the 100 billion that is projected? This is the first question. The second one has to do with the risk mitigation mechanism, because as I've just I've heard from one of the presenters, the issue of risk mitigation. You know, the Mudarabah is one of the instruments of Islamic finance that is being identified and characterized to be volatile. It has high volatility in terms of risk because it is solely trust-based. Therefore, so many risk mitigation mechanisms are usually suggested. I don't know whether such risk mitigation mechanisms were taken into consideration, such as PER, profit equalization reserve, and IRR. So please, I just want to have more lights on this. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mr. Rufai, you have the mic.
Okay, for the program, yes, the program is an 100 billion program, but in terms of the timetable for the issuances, yes, this particular one is 10 billion. The subsequent one have no specific amount. The bank can actually raise it based on the approval being granted by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So the next one could be a 50 billion, it could be 30, it could be 40, depending on what the APS regulator have actually approved for the bank to actually source within the 100 billion program available. Then for the mitigation, like you said, Doctor, yes, for Mudarabah Sukuk, going by the nature, because it's an equity base, and the Robuma here will actually bear the loss in case there are loss experienced in the business. But as part of the risk mitigation, the management of this capital, yes, the bank, as we've explained, have the power, that is the profit equalization reserve, where a certain percentage of the profits being generated by this bank will be also transferred on a periodic basis. It could be daily or monthly, as the case may be, where in case there are a period whereby the expected profit was not being able to be generated by the bank can actually take from this reserved account to smoothing the profit payment to the Sukuk holders. And in addition, the investment that the bank will be using this Mudarabah capital for are contracts whereby it won't be equity-based or partnership-based, just like the partnership base of collecting the money from the investor. It will be based on it will be based on contract of sales and lease, that is using the available contract that will actually give protection to some of this investment the bank will be investing in. And I think this is what the bank have been doing since inception, that have actually they've been able to make a profit out of the businesses they've been doing. And so we also know that in this part of the world, using Mudarabah because of trust issues is a very delicate stuff in financing business. So for financing activities, basically it is to use sales and lease contracts that gives you the control of that particular asset, especially when you use an Ijara contract.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Just to also throw in the fact that I did mention in my earlier remarks that these funds will be commingled with the bank's funds. And of course, that means that our risk management and of course the entire management and the board of this bank has their eyes strongly on the utilization of these funds. The risk management, it will go through the entire process. And this is why even at this time, the bank does not have any NPL. And it is being looked at very, very seriously. That's part of the structures that we're putting in place to risk structures that we're putting in place just to ensure even more carefully that these funds are effectively deployed in line with the bank standard, so that the unlikely event of PDOs and things like that or delinquents will be reduced to the barest minimum. I mean, this added to the comment from the response from Ismail. Thank you, sir.
And in addition, Mr. Moderator, the Sukuk proceed will not be used in maybe any expansionary expenditure or spending by the bank. Rather, it will go 100% in financing business activity. So the bank is not raising this fund for maybe opening a branch in Lagos or Bauchi or Oshogo. Rather, it will go into financing activities 100%. And this is the reason why the CBN is granting this approval. And as part of it, the CBN on a periodic basis also check the book of the bank to ensure that this proceeds are being used the way it is. So for additional Tier 1 capital, there is also the eye of the regulator on this particular fund, just as it's been done in other jurisdictions where the similar structure has been raised.
All right, I think the most important thing is that we are trying to diversify this economy to a productive economy. And if we actually have all these kind of sukuks, definitely we need to put it into something productive, which is financing business in our country. Thank you so much for that question, Doctor. And thank you, Mr. Rufai, and also Mr. Michael for answering that question. Before I go to the next person, which is Abdrazak for Lawrence Shaw, before please get ready. I just want to say this. I think on a lighter note, people that are still on Ismail Rufai, it's just because they want to remain anonymous, all right, which is very, very good for investors. You know, they don't want to know, they don't want us to know these are the kind of people they are. Maybe we even have Dangote here, we don't know, because already they have been disguised. So that's just on a lighter note anyway. So Mr. Abrazak, please kindly unmute yourself. You have the floor.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I think I want to appreciate Mr. Ismaila for that good presentation. But one of my concerns has been addressed by the last speaker with respect to setting aside certain amount of money into the reserve account, which to me, that's what it means sinking fund that can mitigate or absorb any uncertainty. I think that's a very good idea from the bank. But there are other issues being the investors that there's need for the bank to make more clarification in terms of this Islamic terminology with respect to all this during his presentation, like Mudarabah, Ijara, Wakala. You know, being the person from the Kwara, I'm from Kwara State, and most of this terminology I'm not used to it. I think for clarity's sake, there's need for Mr. Ismail to make clarification on this so that we have much more information so that it will assist us in taking an informed decision. But the other issue I want to talk about, I want to find out from in respect of the SPV. I'm not comfortable with the structure, the directors you have there. To the best of my knowledge, in order to ensure that there are checks and balances, I think the trustee, they should have more of like about 3 or 4 directors, while the bank will have one director, so that when it is time for them to take decision, there won't be any compromise. So thank you for giving the opportunity to ask this question. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Abrazak. I think I will, for the term, in terms of the terms and terminologies being used, I've already, addressed that. Mr. Ismail has already taken note of that. But for the question of, for your concern in terms of the directors, or let's say, before anything comes out, believe me, a lot of regulators, a lot of people concerned, the management, public opinion, and everything has been actually put into all this. We are outside body also looking at this, and that is why we try as much as possible to bring this to you, the public, to say that, look, this is the opportunity we have on ground. This is the first of its kind, definitely. You can't be perfect, definitely, but definitely we can have what we call, changes in the long run, because if we don't test the water, we will not even know how strong Islamic finance will be in our country. So if you have the opportunity, we need to put it out there, do it the right way, but there's also a room for improvement. Anyway, I will let Mr. Ismail talk about that also, his own input on that, and also Mr. Michael to talk about that. After that, we will just take one more question, then we'll round up. Mr. Ismail, please touch on that.
For some of the terminologies I know from my own hand here, we've been doing some monthly webinar. I know the first webinar we did from 117 was on Ijara. We've done Mudarabah, and I think for this one we are supposed to even do Mudarabah, but because of this presentation, we will not be able to do that. But on a periodic basis, we've been taking different contracts of Islamic financing, explaining it. So I think what this means that we need to also increase our publicity and do more. But I know for at least on an average on our monthly webinar, we've been having about 400 And you can also check our Facebook page, 117 Capital Limited, for the recording of some of the structures that we've been able to explain. And basically, let me just explain the Mudarabah, which is the underlying contract of this particular presentation. So for Mudarabah is a partnership in business. In each one party provides the capital and the other party manages the business. The one managing the business is called the Mudarib, which is Taj Bank. The one providing the capital is the Robomar, which is, you can call them the Sukuk holders who are being represented here by the delegate trustees. And Mudarabah could be restrictive or it could be non-restrictive. Restrictive means as the provider of capital, you can tell Mr. B that I want this capital of mine to be invested in the purchase of red oil. So it means Mama Titi and Mr. Chinedu can do Mudarabah in their own informal sector, whereby Mama Titi provide Mr. Chinedu a capital of 100,000 naira to finance or purchase red oil from Insuka, and Mr. Chinedu will purchase this red oil and purchase probably 50 jerrycan. And for every jerrycan, they've now decided that we'll be doing profit sharing of 50-50. So meaning any profit being realized by Mr. Chinedu in this regard, Mama Titi will get 50% of this particular profit as agreed in this period. So 50% may not necessarily mean 50% of his capital. It's just 50% of the profit that have been realized in that particular transaction. So I know informally many people have been doing Mudarabah, just that the principle is what they've not been putting in place. Meaning, number one, the profit sharing ratio must be agreed at the beginning of the contract. Number two, the person providing the capital will bear the loss in total, except if negligence is found in the action of Mr. Chinedu. For instance, you ask Mr. Chinedu to go and buy red oil in Insuka, but Mr. Chinedu decided to go to Calabar to go and buy this red oil. Should anything happen, Mr. Chinedu will bear it in total. Or Mr. Chinedu decided to use this money instead of buying red oil and decided to go and buy cashew nut and sell because they feel cashew nut will generate more return on investment. So if anything should happen, because there is a restrictive Mudarabah, Mr. Chinedu will be held responsible. But if it's an unrestricted Mudarabah, you know Mr. Chinedu deals in the purchase of red oil, cashew nut, and anything. I gave Mr. Chinedu, meaning you give Mr. Chinedu the discretion to invest this particular capital in any of his business activities, but you surely agree on the profit sharing ratio that you'll be getting on a periodic basis. And Mr. Chinedu is also expected to be upright and straightforward in explaining to you in details the profit he has generated. But the problem here is
sorry for interrupt, because time is not on our side.
Okay.
I mean, a perfect way to do this is to have another webinar to explain the contracts, you know, to the public. But thank you so much for that. Hope Mr. Chinedu did not offend you this morning anyway. So that's been taken out of it. So thank you so much. I think that answers the question of Mr. Razak. Yeah, Mr. Razak. So I will try to call on the last question we have, which is Ismail Rufai, which is an anonymous. Please kindly unmute yourself and let's get your question in. I've asked you to unmute, please kindly do that, and let's get your question in. Okay, if we don't have any, okay, fine. From the chat box, I see that we've actually gone through. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Go ahead, please.
My name is Awal Ado.
Good morning, sir.
So my question is, at what point can we trade this kind of sukuk?
Okay. At what point can we trade the kind of sukuk? All right, Mr. Ismail, can you answer that?
So the sukuk will become tradable immediately the proceed of this capital has been passed to the Mudarib, which is the bank, and they've started doing the investment in it. So as we all know, the bank is not a new bank that you said they will take time for them to start deploying this capital. We believe they have already different transactions in which on the date in which this Sukuk proceed is passed to the bank, they can deploy it immediately. So immediately the bank receive the money and deploy it, then the tradability of the Sukuk also can start. So meaning the date SEC approved that we should transfer this money, the bank receive it, then classify it as the investment have started at that point in time.
One thing I need to add there is also that the exchange is really doing wonderful well. So they always, it's swift for them to actually do this. So definitely expect swift response to that. Thank you so much for the questions you've actually posed to the speakers. And I thank the speakers for actually answering those questions to the best of their ability. And I believe that the answers given are actually satisfactory to the people that asked the question. Before we actually go, to close this webinar, one thing we have not talked about is how for where can they buy, can they actually buy this? Because I've had a lot of people call me saying that they want to buy, they've been into the receiving banks, but they say they don't know what is really going on. They don't know anything about the form and everything. So I want you to actually direct people. If I want to buy this now, if I want to buy it, what am I going to do? Mr. Ismail, what am I going to do? This question is directly to you.
Okay, as you can see on the screen, we have the professional parties to this particular Sukuk, being a Greenwich Merchant Bank, Tido Securities, Eva Capital, and FIMAC. And also we have 117 Capital Limited, Bura Capital Limited. So any of these professional parties can actually be contacted, and also the receiving bank. And I believe we've been able to share the subscription form through the various parties' website and social media handle. And you can also contact, if for instance it's 117 Capital, you can contact us through info@117capital limited and .com and send this and request for either the form and also the submission of the form. So any of these professional parties, and even including Taj Bank, you can also actually contact any of these parties and you'll be able to get the subscription form from this particular Sukuk.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So attendees and prospective investors, this is for you. Go approach any Jais Bank or Lotus Bank, or even the receiving agent, which is Mabu Capital, to actually ask for this. What I mean in this regard is you need to fill a form. Listen to this, because you need to explain this to people. Don't go online to say you want to pay or do all these things. Fill that form. After filling the form, go to the bank, make the transfer to the account of Taj Sukuk from the receiving banks. After you do that, if you are not in any of these cities where you can access these companies listed on your screen now, try as much as possible to contact them via their company website or emails. Send the filled form attached with your transfer slip to them, and definitely they will tell you what to do next. I really appreciate everyone for attending this wonderful webinar. It has been a wonderful one for all of us here. And I must say, thank you so much to our speakers for taking time out of your busy schedule. Mr. Michael, thank you so much for not finding me in terms of your name. I don't know if I spoil your name or not. Is it Odim or Odim? I don't know. It's just...
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Odim is fine. Thank you very much.
Fine. Anyway, if you are going to find me, I'm going to pay you with my tax Sukuk, so no problem about that. I think we've solved that, right? Okay, so thank you so much again for actually joining this. We'll definitely be having a series of this kind of webinars to expose you to the opportunities in the Islamic finance market. IFING Media is really trying its best to make sure that we do what we call Islamic finance propagation to make sure that we let the public understand what Islamic finance is and the opportunities in the Islamic finance world. So with this, I will want to give...
Mr. Mudassir, sorry, sir.
Go ahead, please.
One is asking when will the Sukuk actually offer close? It will close on the 28th of October this month.
Okay, 28th of October this month. We don't have time really. We need to quickly buy our share, right? So 28th.
Gentlemen, can I say something? Sorry if I'm interrupting. My hands have been up for a while.
Sorry, go ahead, please. I will just
okay. My name is Kenneth. I work for Greenwich Merchant Bank. Two things particularly. It's a public offer here, and that just means that 28th of October is the recommended date. That's 28 working days from the day it opens. But if there's any public holiday in between when the offer opens and when it closes, naturally the offer will extend by those numbers of public holidays. Yeah, federal public holidays, to be precise, not the ones granted by states. So that is the rule of the SEC. That is the first thing I wanted to mention. The second thing is, it was a question somebody asked earlier, which I raised my hand to, if I could contribute to the answer, is really around, this is a fixed price offer. Somebody asked if the rates could be adjusted upwards. It's a fixed price offer. Yeah, the market in the last decade or so has been used to book building transactions. This is not one of such. Yeah, this is a fixed price offer. So once you open as approved by the SEC, that price cannot be changed. But Michael did very well to also explain that while the 15% is an indicative rate, the rate could be higher, it could be lower. But at no point it could be lower, sorry. Although it's loss absorbent, features have been plugged in to make sure it doesn't go beyond below 15%. However, it can be higher, as the case may be. I just thought to mention those two items or issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your contribution. I'm sorry I didn't see your hands up. Apologies there. I think the leading issuing house and all other parties that are involved in this sukuk should do as well to do promotion for this. Is very, very important. This we've done our own part. We are still going to continue to do our part. You can visit our website also at IFINGmedia.com to check on what we do. Also, we are all on the social media handles, which is IFING Media at IFING Media. So you can check out what we do also. So with this, I think I'm going to close this webinar. But before I close this webinar, Mr. Ismail, please go ahead with your closing remark here.
Okay, I think my closing remark here is number one, we should understand that what Taj Bank is doing is not something new in the banking sector. Rather, yes, it's the first in Nigeria, but in terms of the principle guiding the issuance itself, it is based on the guideline as stipulated by the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Islamic Financial Service Board. So the bank is not the one manufacturing the rules guiding these particular issuances. It is based on the already available structure. And I will also employ each and every one of us to actually invest in the sukuk, irrespective of whether it is Mudarabah or Musharaka. The best thing is to look at the bank, which is like the sukuk asset itself, and how has the bank be able to perform within this period under operation. I think I'll say the bank has performed excellently well. Last year, they have the highest return per equity for investors in the Nigerian banking sector. So for a bank that started operation less than 3 years, but they've been able to achieve a lot, breaking even in 8 years, in 8 months, sorry, and generating one of the highest return on equity within the Nigerian banking sector. I think is a very good one for us to be able to associate ourselves with the development and the growth of Taj Bank Nigeria Limited. I think with this, I will, and I also thank you, Malam Mudassir, for giving us the opportunity to also speak with the public and also increase the publicity and the awareness of this particular sukuk structure. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much to Mr. Michael. Your closing remark.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to take it from where my brother Ismail. I can't appreciate you, the organizers of this event. Just like he closed with the growth of Taj Bank, I'm taking it beyond that. It's the growth of the non-interest space in Nigeria, and of course, by extension, contribution to their economy, because the public is the general banking public. I mean, we're looking at the business model and the ideology here, but it is the general banking public. I want to encourage everyone to participate. Don't just subscribe. Get friends, relations, colleagues, and even out there. Let us push this out there. Like Ismail did mention, this is not the first time. So Taj Bank is not reinventing the wheel in any way. I mean, this is already happening in other clients by notable corporates globally. So let us push it such that at the end of the day, we'll record a successful outcome. Thanks once again. And of course, I will convey this goodwill message from you to my management. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much for that message. We've heard you. Investors, go ahead, do your own findings. Go to their website, download their statements, read through, make sure you do your own analysis. If you have any question, you can ask any of this. I mean, houses 117, Taj Bank, and others. I think it's not going to, I won't do justice if I did not bring in Mr. Tyro Machido to give us, I mean, a leading closing remark, because, I mean, he contributed to this also. Mr. Tyro, please give us a leading closing remark before we now close the session.
Thank you so much, Brother Mudathir, and thank you so much, Ismail, as well as the Taj Bank that have presented here and answer questions, concerns of our able potential investors. We shall know that, of course, this is Mudarabah Sukuk, which, of course, Ismail, as well as all other contributors here have explained in terms of what Mudarabah principles are with respect to the non-interest finance. Strictly being the Sharia advisor of the transactions, we will make sure that we follow through the principles of this particular contracts and make sure that the investors are covered in terms of what they are investing. We know that even though we said it is projected for the profit, actually not rental, because rental is for the Ijara contract. This is Mudarabah, so it's profit. For the projected profit of 15% is not actually, it's just because of our mindset that we are used to calculating our ROI, return on investment, based on the percentage. However, it was also explained that whatever the profit that has been actually confirmed, 75% of it will be taken by the bank and 25% will be taken by the investors. It is based on that 25% that it is quantified to be 15% per annum. So now that we know that the MPR by the Central Bank of Nigeria has been moved to 15.5%, automatically, if Taj Bank is going to finance any contractors or any customer that is in need of this particular financing, definitely they have to also be concerned of what rate in the Murabaha or what rate in the Ijara are they going to, which will reflect in the profit that will go to the investors, which may definitely be after above 15% based on their respective credit analysis of the customers that they will do. With respect to this, I actually call on everybody to try as much as possible to see how they can invest in it and also to see how they can benefit in this particular aspect. Taj Bank being the highest earning per share bank in the entire banking sector in Nigeria has been demonstrated actually to be able to present whatever they said they are going to present in terms of their profit to their respective stakeholders, including the Sukuk investors. Thank you so much, and I call on you to all patronize into it. And thank you so much, Mudathir and your team that have brought all these ones together with 117 and the Taj Bank. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for that wonderful closing remark. I'll leave you all with this. You need to participate in Islamic finance before you start talking about, issues. and then we can now sit down to talk about the solutions. So thank you so much for this, and do have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.